Okay, so here is the the instructions for the submission of the introduction, and I think I give you a lot of tips and suggestions on how to write the introduction, and I give you like a structure that can be useful for you. So first is the background, and as I say, the background is much more empirically driven. So first, show the empirical relevance of your topic. Then also in here, show that you can use data to kind of explore that issue, because sometimes the background is impossible to research. So I think in the background, you also need to show that you can do it. Like what can be achievable, or what can be studied. Like maybe you can say like, we don't know how corporate governance work in an extremely authoritarian country like North Korea, but then you have to show how can you get the data from that or something like that. So explain that it is possible to achieve it, to kind of unpack that background and relevance of empirical relevance of the project. Another tip is that in the background, it's not that important to use many, especially theoretical references, because that comes in the problem. So here it's better if you use more empirically and practical references. Like, for example, if you want to highlight the importance of sustainability, you can include some data from the United Nations, something like that. And not that many papers, because the theory comes later. So maybe more practical things. And keep these questions in mind when you write that. Why is this topic relevant? Why will practitioners or society in general will care about this? And also, why is this not obvious? Because then sometimes the background can be very obvious, like the question can be answered very quickly without the need to do it. So think about these points, like when you finish the background, ask this and make sure that you are able to write, to answer to these questions. Then the problem, and as I said, sometimes this is where the students face most of the issues. So first, state what we know so far from what does the literature know about this topic that you discussed previously. And again, at the conceptual level, not at the empirical level, not about Sweden, not about Europe, about at a conceptual level. What is what we know? So present that, what do we know about that? And then problematize that what we currently know is not enough. So here are a few suggestions. I think in the other videos that I show you, I also have some strategies to problematize something, but in very few words is challenge the theoretical assumptions. So maybe previous literature assumed, for example, that performance is only financial performance. That can be, it's a very dumb example because it has been challenged quite a lot, but maybe literature assumes that performance is only quantitative performance, like the nature or the performance is only quantitative. But then you can challenge, what if performance in a certain context is perceived also qualitatively, like maybe the quantitative nature of performance is not enough. Qualitative issues are also important. So that is kind of challenging the assumption of that performance is only quantitative, and then you challenge you present that like there is not a lot, like maybe there is one exploratory study about this, or maybe there is also this other study with only public data, but they don't go into details of how this happens and why is it that people actually assess qualitative things to performance. So that's kind of problematizing theoretical assumptions. And another thing that is also a bit similar is kind of challenging the context. Like maybe you can challenge that some concepts were developed in a different context where, for example, like maybe there was not many, like in terms of digitalization, like maybe the technology was very different when these theories emerged. And maybe now the technology has evolved so much that the role of the new technology doesn't work well with that theory about digitalization that previously we know. So you also challenge the context. It's a bit similar because you're also kind of challenging the assumptions, like the previous assumptions assume kind of more primitive technology, and now technology is different, so you are challenging that. That's a way to problematize theoretically your and remember, you're not challenging the technology, you are challenging the assumption about the technology. So that's the thing. And finally, motivate your contribution. Here you can also kind of highlight where are you pointing out, where are your expected contributions somehow, like the contribution of this thesis goes on this, for example, on the conceptualization of technology or on the conceptualization of performance. You can highlight that. And then the third section of that introduction will be the research question. And here you can do two things. You can also, because I think the university suggests that you have first before the question, or that you include the question around here, and then you have a purpose. You can do it as well with the purpose, like purpose as subsection. And in the purpose is very simpler. What is the objective of what you are doing? Highlight the theoretical objectives. That's the most important thing, but also mention the practical relevance. But the most important thing is that you highlight the theoretical objectives. What is what you want to achieve theoretically? A better understanding of a concept, reconceptualization of something. What is what you want to achieve? And then my suggestion is that you finish this introduction with a question that kind of wrap up everything. And when you write your question, remember to focus on the conceptual level, not the empirical level. It's not a good research question to ask, like, what is, or I don't know, what is the common understanding of what is the common understanding of performance in Sweden? That is not a good research question because it's very practically driven, empirically driven. It is more about which factors promote which factors hinder or foster the idea of qualitative performance in organizations or something like that, much more conceptual. And again, it's trial and error, so try your best, and then when we have the tutoring session, I can give you some feedback. So this is basically the structure that you should follow. Start with the empirical issue. I think it's 1 page is enough. Then the problem, 1 or 2 pages is enough. And then the research question with your purpose. So it's probably kind of 1 paragraph when you kind of summarize everything that you said. Then maybe 1 paragraph or very short paragraph with very clear what is your objective, what is your purpose, and then finish with your research question. So I hope that you find this useful for your first submission.